Hello, family. Those of you new to the work today, this community, together we identify the thoughts we're thinking that cause all the trouble in our life, all the depression, all the anger, all the misunderstanding, the confusion, the fear. We identify the thoughts in our head that are running in those moments where we're not doing so well. We move those thoughts from our head to paper on what I call a judge your neighbor worksheet. There are 6 questions on it. It's a meditative process. Like he said he didn't care about me. Okay, so in that situation, how did I react? What happened when I believed the thought? We identify what we're thinking and believing. We move it from our head to paper onto that judge your neighbor worksheet, and then we do self-inquiry with it. It's alone work, even though in this community we all hang in together and sit in the practice. Waking up to reality. And in that waking up to reality, to understand this world, the one running in my head, waking up to that, opens me to an understanding beyond that. All the noise, and I say that respectfully, all the noise, the thoughts running and the tears running, the anger running, beyond that into clearly the experience of what matters. Not as a theory, but as an understanding. And what is that understanding for me? It is to realize that life is a gift without opposite. Life is a gift other than what I'm thinking and believing on those occasions. Life is a gift. And on those occasions, I move it from my head to paper, and it gives me a life filled with understanding, connection, all the things I wanted all my life, to be in the face of other people's fear and understand. Not too good with words, but boy, these judge your neighbor worksheets. Sangeeta, you have a judge your neighbor worksheet filled in, sweetie? Okay, honey. So what is the situation and what did you fill in for number 1? Those of you new to the worksheet again has 6 questions on it. So what did you write in for number 1?
I wrote, I'm upset slash terrified because there's a little girl in me that's terrified as well. The adult in me is upset. So I'm upset slash terrified with Dad because he continues to make angry faces at me, even in the hospital when he's sick and having coughing attacks.
Oh boy, honey. And what is the specific situation where this is going on as you describe it?
Yeah, I was standing outside of the curtain and I was just looking out the window. Just looking at the window. It was a nice, beautiful day. He didn't want to have the light in. And then he looks at me and he's like, come on, like don't be out there. And it's like that's kind of how he communicates with
Yeah,
me, kind of
yeah,
making angry faces. And I got, like just like
yeah.
um, yeah, I just always jump when he makes those faces, and I would love to never do that again.
In that situation you just described, be there now. You saw it in your mind's eye. What, you're looking out the window and you turn around and he's doing all that stuff as you described. Look at him, close your eyes, He has an angry face. That is an angry face. You could be right. Check it out. Is it true that your dad has an ugly, an angry face? Look at all his gestures, everything. That's an angry face. Is it true?
It feels true.
Oh, it would, because you're believing it. So get still. This is truly an exercise in stillness, not to change your mind, but to double check and double check. How old were you? Was it recent? Was it years ago? Recent? Okay, we're all still little girls or little boys. Anytime we're fearful or hurt, that's an ageless thing. So just be, open your mind. Look at his face. All of those gestures, but look at his face. He's angry. Notice how you react. What happens when you believe the thought? He makes angry faces at me.
I'm just not present. I'm just totally not present. I'm confused, shocked, and defensive.
Anything else? Bitter?
I was just looking out the window. So I started defending myself. Dad, I'm not staring at anybody. I'm just looking out the window. So I just get really defensive in that situation. And always confused. Like this.
Yeah. So that's how you react when you think the thought, Dad makes angry faces at me. So get in touch with that. Look at what you say, what you think, those images of past, future, even nanosecond future, like it's.
Yeah, that lots of future moments are like that. Lots, ever since I can even remember, just always being scared of his faces.
Yeah. Okay, honey.
And maybe taking it personally, perhaps taking it personally like it's about me.
That's what I'm getting, that you've done something wrong, and he's angry, and I mean, I'm assuming that's what you were thinking, because that's what you've written on your worksheet. Dad makes angry faces at me, so stay anchored right there. Notice how you treat your dad when you think the thought, he's making angry faces at me.
Annoyed. I get annoyed, even though I'm there to help. I have a tone after that, kind of, like a little edge, annoyed edge with him. I get defensive. I try to explain myself, like I'm just not in my peace. I'm just anxious and irritated.
Yeah.
And what comes up is, why can't you just let me be? Can you just let me be? Just let me be who I want to be. And why do you keep trying to tell me what I should do and not look at, and what I should look at? Like all that just volcanoes.
Ego just in the past, in the past, in the past, in the past. He's never going to change in the past. He's doing it again. Okay, continue to look at him. He's saying, don't be there, get out of the window. So look at him without the thought, he makes angry faces at me. Look at your dad. You looked out of the window. Not a crime. Look at your dad. Look at his gestures. Look at his, just everything you described. He's making angry faces at you. Is it true? And remember, all of you sitting in this, the answer is either yes or no. This is an exercise in stillness. And the ego wants to justify and talk about it, but no.
What
He's
comes
making angry faces at you.
what comes is that he's making angry faces at his thoughts about what he thinks I'm doing.
Yeah.
What he thinks I'm doing, I'm not doing. And I don't actually even know what he thinks. I think he thinks I'm staring at another patient. I don't know. That's the logical mind trying to figure out. But
So what you've said makes a lot of sense.
he's making angry faces at the thoughts that he's believing about what he thinks that I'm doing.
Yeah, so that's about him. It's about him and trying to spare his daughter from being hurt. He's making angry faces at me. And that last thing I said, could be. Now look at your dad again. Without the thought, he makes angry faces at me.
Mhm. No, I can't absolutely know that that's true now.
Now notice your reaction to your father when you're believing the thought, he's making angry faces at me. Notice your treatment. Notice, do you turn into your mother? Do you turn into him? Do you turn, just maybe not quite as obviously, but in your own way?
Yeah, I become less than compassionate. Like I get out of my compassion. For the reason I'm there is to support him, and then I'm out of it. And I'm in the story of the past that probably hundreds of times I've had the same.
Yeah, he's making angry faces at me. Turned around, he's making fearful faces at me. In other words, let's find an opposite for angry. Anger is a mask for fear.
It could be that
You'll always be his little girl. It doesn't matter what, his job as father is to protect. That's the identity that you're there to see your father,
in
see
that
his daughter.
in what you just said, I can see that there's a guy in front of him who's very, very, very ill. He has his curtain closed because he doesn't want to see him. And I think he thinks that I'm seeing him. And then perhaps it's a protection, like, come back here. Come back here. Like, don't be there. Don't witness that guy suffering, because that guy in front of him looks like he's suffering, but he looks like he's in bad shape. So
So your dad has to act very quickly to protect you from that moment that is happening or about to happen, or he's sparing you from seeing anymore. My dad makes angry faces at me. My dad makes fatherly faces at me. Maybe not someone else's father, but that's how your father protects you. And he's got to move fast because he's going to spare you from seeing that guy. in pain. Your father's making angry faces at you. Turned around, my father is making protective faces at me. Which feels truer to you?
I can tell you that making protective faces at me makes me feel more freed of the upset. And it makes me just like look at all the umpteen times I called it anger, but from him, it's protection.
And look who he's up against. You're very strong. Sometimes hard of hearing parental suggestions and advice.
Oh, my whole life, I was a rebel. Yeah.
So he's got to be pretty obvious to get through to you, to support you, not to see what could be painful for you to see in his mind.
And see that who I have been my whole life to him is like a black sheep, somebody who doesn't follow the normal path. So perhaps in him, in
It's really scary for someone, a father trying to protect their daughter. Ah,
yeah. Wow. I couldn't see how this could be transformed in my mind. I couldn't see it.
well, it's the truth that sets us free. You know, I've heard that, you know, occasionally all my life. It's the truth that sets you free. What do they mean by that? Well, you are certainly the answer to it is the truth that sets us free. You know, we've moved from an angry father to a protective father. The way your ego is imagining his face to be. Growing up with him as a father, you were rebellious. Not easy to really listen to your father as he's fathering, attempting to father.
Mhm.
My dad makes
Perhaps
me
that little girl in me kind of confused anger with protection and just kind of melted it into one because that simplified it.
all
And
that little girl knew is he's in my way. He's trying to stop me from doing what I want.
Mm.
And how do we react when we believe the thought? We wait until they're asleep to do what we do, or when he's at work, and all these little, we don't want to see that. Okay, honey, in that situation in the hospital, what do you want? What do you want your father to think, say, feel, or do in that situation?
I want dad to relax and be laid back. I want dad to stop controlling me and focus on his own health.
So you want your dad to relax and be laid back. How do you treat your dad when you believe that thought?
I give him lectures about how he should be relaxed.
Familiar?
I protect him. I try to protect him.
Wow. I wonder if he thinks, why is she so angry? I'm just trying to, I'm in the hospital and she's angry. What a,
I'm telling someone to relax who's keeps having coughing fits and shortness of breath is, how do I say this? It's kind of obvious. It's not like he doesn't want to relax, but that his body is reacting the way it is to.
Yeah, he'd rather protect you than be happy. I mean, than be healthy. It's like with parents, it's just second nature. We've been doing it so long. It's our job. And arguments break out and power struggles and that's how it's part of growing up, part of fathering, part of daughtering, part of I need him to stop controlling me and focus on his health. So be there now in that situation where you believe he's making angry faces at you and turn it around in that situation. Get really, really still. Look at your father in that situation. Hear his words. Look at him. He's doing his thing. So live this turnaround as I turn your turnaround, as I turn your thing to a turnaround. I want me to relax
Want me to relax and be laid back
and stop controlling him
and stop controlling him and focus on his health.
Now you have your job. You have someone that's listening. And that's yourself. Now live this turnaround. Be there now with your eyes closed. I don't want him to relax and be laid back. Let him go. Just, you know what he's trying to save you from. Just turn your eyes away from it. Turn toward him. I want me to relax and be laid back.
Because my peace will transfer to him.
Exactly.
But not if I'm trying to control him.
No, now you've got two of you playing the same game. And it's the game of I love you and I'm I want to do it my way and I'm here to help you and he's there to help you and it's yeah, love. Love's a beautiful thing. It's like, who are you without the thought? I want him to stop controlling me and focus on his and for me to focus on his health. I want me to stop controlling him and to focus on my health. Those turnarounds are so powerful when you're healthy. It spreads across the entire family. Healthy of mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now get really close. Look at your dad when you're believing the thought. I want him to relax and be laid back. And he's not. Look at him. Look at the effort it takes for him to get through to you. And he still doesn't.
Feels like a selfless act when we put it in the context of protection. That he leaves his own peace in that moment to attempt to rescue
To father,
her.
to rescue. To spare his little pumpkin. Let's look at 3. And let's go back to 2 again. I don't want him to relax and be laid back. So just witness him trying to spare you. I don't want him to relax and be laid back. It gives you opportunity to really look at how hard he tries and what he has been through to get your attention over the years.
This is our way of getting my attention, which is difficult to get. My obedience, which is which I rarely ever give him.
And he's still hanging in on what could be his deathbed. He's still hanging in. Oh, God. Oh, boy. Love really is the power. Let's look at 3.
In this situation, Dad shouldn't stress about small stuff. Dad should be more gentle. He should be more self-aware. He should be kinder to me.
He shouldn't stress about small stuff. What was going on was small stuff. The thing he was trying to spare you from seeing, that's small stuff. Is it true?
Yeah, it wasn't really small stuff. It was a man suffering and barely being able to breathe and suffocating on his own saliva. It wasn't small. To me, I was just looking at the window, but to him,
So notice your dad is he's got that look on his face, and now you have an understanding of something else as a possibility, like worried, trying to spare you. That's been the life's trip, the 2 of you. He should stress about small stuff. Another father, no. But we're talking about your dad.
his capacity to care is so enormous that he stresses about small stuff. Whereas other dads may just let it go and let the other person figure it out, but that's not his way.
And in that situation with my dad, close your eyes and live this turnaround. Okay. He's trying to spare you, for all you know. He should stress about small stuff. He should not be gentle when you look back at your history and what it takes to be here for you to really hear him. He should not be self-aware. He's daughter-aware. And he should not be kind to you. That is his kind to you.
That just rewrites my entire story with him, my whole entire life story with him.
Never too late. And those of you that are doing mom and dad work, even if you've lost your mom and dad, never too late. They live in you. They live in you. You know, I imagine Stephen's in the other room, so he's living in me. My mother's been dead for several years now. She's living in me. And if someone walks into the room, they live in me because they are who I believe them to be. So they're living in me. There's that person, and then there's the person as I imagine them to be. Whatever my ego's into that I have no control over. Like I'll say a word, do not give it a picture. I'll say the word, do not give it a picture. Banana. Did you see it? Word, picture. Word, apparent life. If you have apparent life without a name, it just. So let's turn this around, sweetheart, in that situation. Be there with your dad. Don't change anything. He's making all that, but you know a little more about the look on his face now. He should stress about small stuff. He should not be gentle. He should not be self-aware or kind to you. He's in dad mode. He does not want you to see that horrific thing.
Mhm. When you say he should not be gentle, there's an immediate aversion, but then comes an understanding.
When you look at your history, his history with you growing up, he's pretty restrained.
I did some pretty horrible things that he never knew, but he tried to protect me from, and his fatherly instincts were correct, and I was involved in very inappropriate things in high school. Only looking back, the poor guy, oh, if he only knew.
Well, it's never too late to make it up, understanding that's the power, and everything shifts in it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, be there with your father. I shouldn't stress about small stuff, meaning the way he expresses himself to get my attention
Mhm.
for what he believes is going to protect you.
It's almost like my past behavior has taught him to be like this with me. Because I've never really been like this with him. I've never really been open and welcoming of his advice. I've always been like this. So that's how I've taught him to learn to be with me. Because he's not like that with my sister, who is very much open and please teach me, Dad.
Yeah, you've been your daddy's handful. Kept that guy on his toes.
Yeah.
Oh, he should not be gentle or self-aware or kind to me because he is being kind to you. His brand of how he knows to communicate with you, unlike the way he would communicate with with your sister.
Mhm.
So now live this turnaround. I should not stress about the small stuff. And that is the way your dad communicates with you. I should be gentle with him. In that situation, continue to live the turnarounds. I should be self-aware and father-aware and kind to him and kind to me.
That feels so much more expansive than the other.
And more like you. Let's look at 4. In that situation, to be happy, what do you need him to think, say, feel, or do for you to be happy in that situation?
I need Dad to not show me so much anger and upset. And I need Dad to not try to control me and just let me be.
He's showing anger. Look again. Is he more desperate or angry? Is he into save my daughter mode from being hurt by life? Look at him. Is he angry or just trying to get through to you, save you, spare you? How do you treat your dad when you think the thought, I need him to not show me anger and upset? So witness in that situation. You can see how rebellious you were in high school. You know, that's how you react. And in the hospital, notice the familiarity of how you react. Because the ego has all that evidence behind it. It may not have been valid then, as we look at your father now through clearer eyes, more open eyes. Look at him without the thought, I need him to not show me anger and upset. So let him be. You're more aware now. He's trying to spare you. And just really look. Look at his face. Look at his arms, his hands.
The funny thing is that when he makes these faces, they only last for like 2 seconds.
Well, they sure lasted longer than that in your head.
But in me, they last for an eternity, it feels. In 2 seconds, it's not so bad. But when it's seared in the mind,
Yeah, well, is that fear or anger that he's on his face?
I can't know for sure what it is, but it's something, a combination of fear, protection, maybe some anger, but I don't know.
When my mother would get just wild with us, just out of control, on we had really done things that frightened her.
Mm,
Not be home on time after dark. Um, you know, I could go on and on, but and my father would just stop speaking. Give me the look, which was terrifying. And that was just the look. Your father's got stuff rolling It's
Very clear things rolling out.
You know, he's seeing images of the future, and boy, what he's looking at, he sure doesn't want his baby girl having to see and live with. Yeah. And same thing through high school. So read for taking it in, turned around, for me to be happy.
For me to be happy. I don't need dad to not show me anger. In order for me to be happy, I don't need dad to try to control me. No, how do
Stop
we
trying to control me.
stop trying to control me? I don't need dad to stop trying to control me and let me be,
Yeah.
because I can be happy outside of that.
Even though his intentions are good. Yeah. To understand him is to see, you know, anger is a mask for fear. And sometimes people look really angry and they're just frightened.
And he had a lot of reasons to be frightened for me. He was right. I was wrong in that situation growing up.
Yes,
So
something you can share with him that just just extraordinary from where I sit.
mhm.
Finally catching up with your dad. So another turnaround to be happy in that situation. I need me.
I need me to try not, I need me to not control my dad and let him be.
Yeah, let him be. Let him be in that fathering position of all he knows to do with you. And he better do it fast and hard in that situation because it's a matter of just seeing something, glancing at something that he doesn't want you to be stuck in your head or frightened, be frightened around.
You know, Katie, my whole life I wanted a dad that was wise and loving and just gave me wisdom, meditative, and I resisted his fathering always. But life presented me a person who gave his own fathering in his own way, in his own wisdom that showed up for him. He came from India when he was 18, you know, experienced tons of racism, and he only knew how to protect. You know, he may not have had Buddhist language, you know, he may not have had, you know, what I wanted, but he had protection, and I resisted it, and I fell hard a lot of my life because I didn't take the protection. So I did have a wise dad in the bigger picture of totality. I just didn't see it. Complete unraveling of the whole story.
Yeah, we think it should look a certain way, like in the books or in a movie or something, but no, there's an expression I think of looks can be um,
Deceiving? Looks can be deceiving.
deceiving, yes. And this looks like one of those cases. Like you imagine him as being angry, and sometimes fear looks that way. It actually is, but it doesn't in this situation. He's it is fear. He's trying to spare his daughter. And you can ask him about it. Next time you talk to him, you can ask him about it just to double check Dad, and when you're in the hospital and I was at the window and you waved were you trying to spare me from seeing that man that was in so much pain? Is that what you wanted? Is what was going on in you, Dad? And then listen. And then you might share that you get it. You finally get it.
That you're a good protector in the way that you know how, with the tools that you have. I
Or
know
you
you can.
just might say, I'm just a tough customer and you've dealt with me well. I finally get it.
Mhm. You're the toughest customer.
Because it's you that's shifting. He's the same consistently. Could be he doesn't want you to experience situations that he moved his entire family away from to protect. That's amazing. It's a big deal. Let's look at 5.
Dad is angry. Dad has no self-awareness. Dad has no self-control. Dad is selfish because people should do what he thinks is right.
There's your head on steroids in that situation. Yeah, attack the dad, teach the dad, train the dad. All familiar. So, in that situation, what is the opposite of angry as you look at him in that situation, trying to spare you?
Loving.
That's what came to me too. And who would think that kind of almost panic would, trying to spare you, would look like anger? Sometimes it does. But I can't know what another person's thinking or believing, but I can certainly understand that I don't know, and then communicate and learn more. In that situation, my dad has self awareness, daughter awareness. In that situation, he has no self control. That's the way you wrote it. And it stands as a turnaround without changing the words. He has no self control when it comes to sparing you what he deems could harm you in any way, what he could spare you from in that situation.
See that.
In that situation, what is the opposite of selfish? Generous?
Yeah. Selfless.
He'll read it that way, turned around. In that situation, my dad is helpless, expecting me to do what he thinks is right. Oh my gosh. Oh. And in that situation, I am expecting him to do what I think is right.
Yeah. which is to be a gentle Buddha.
Yeah.
Reality is not looking like the father that I feel like I believe I should have, and so I resist everything that he does and says and is.
And to be fair, not everything, notice your words.
Mm.
Yeah, you can make a list of where you don't and haven't expected him. It's not just one thing. We can be angry and hurt by our fathers when we consider what we're thinking and believing. We understand where the hurt's coming from. But guilt is the effect of believing our thoughts acted out on. Like, how did you treat your father when you saw him as angry with no self-awareness, expecting you to do what he thinks is right?
I got defensive with him. I tried to explain everything, and then I got uptight the rest of the time that I was there.
Familiar to your dad and familiar to you, speaking for your dad. But I'm imagining that's okay with him because he did his best to spare you. He keeps on being your dad. That not so quiet Buddha.
The jumping Buddha.
In fact, he was pretty quiet. He was waving his arms with a look on his face that you saw as anger. My dad is angry. What is another word when you look at opposites?
Loving,
Again?
loving, loving. My
Loving.
dad,
Mhm. And the opposite of no self-awareness? Self-awareness?
self-awareness.
Mhm.
He
No
knows
self.
his role. It's like he knows his role as a protector.
Mhm. No self-control, turned around.
He has self-control.
Yeah, he was very clear what he did not want to happen when it came to his little girl. We can be in our 50s or 60s or any age, and if our fathers are still living, a father like that is always going to see us as someone. He's the father, we're the child, no matter what.
Mhm.
Yeah. He is selfish in expecting you to do what he thinks is right. Turned around, I am
I
selfish.
am selfish,
Expect.
expecting him to do what I think is right. The mind still wants that he should be a gentle Buddha. Like it wants that. Like it's all I've ever known, kind of, that pattern is all I've ever known. And now I'm
Well,
like,
you're the gentle Buddha, and you love someone and you want to spare that someone, and you know that someone well, they're not a great listener when it comes to you, to you, that Buddha. And the Buddha speaks the language necessary to be the Buddha, chances are. Like, don't turn your head left. Stop. And what would you do? You'd immediately turn your head left. He knew better.
You know what's interesting? Actually, when I look back at the situation, I did look at that man. I did. I wasn't actually, I was looking at the window, but I was also kind of interested in his experience and what was happening and how he was being cared for by his loved ones. So in a way, I actually was looking at what he didn't want me to look at.
And what you saw is not what he saw in his mind's eye.
Yes.
So he's not trying to spare you from what you saw. He's trying to spare you from what he fears you're going to see when you look out that window.
That's why he drew a curtain so that he didn't see that man because it's scary for him.
Could be, ask him.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be like, Dad, I looked out that window the other day when that thing happened, and I didn't see anything out of the norm at that time. And I don't know what you've seen, but I'm glad you don't look out the window anymore.
Mm.
If what you see was so awful. Or you
Mhm.
might just, I understand why you wouldn't look out the window any longer.
Mhm.
That way he has permission to or not to, as
Mm.
far as anything you would speak. My dad is angry, the opposite.
My dad is loving me in the way that he knows how.
Opposite of no self-awareness.
My dad has self-awareness for what he believes is his role as a protector.
And the way he needs to be seen and heard by you.
Mm-hmm.
That's self-awareness of, if he just says something, it's not going to go very far with you in his experience.
Mm-hmm.
But if he does all, if he does that other thing to get your attention,
Works.
he has no self-control. He has plenty of self-control. He's when it comes to you. It's like, hey, you, yo, don't. Oh, let's look at 6, sweetie.
Um, what is it about this person that you don't ever want to experience? I don't ever want him to be controlling of me in the middle of a health crisis.
He was controlling you. Is it true?
No, he was just protecting me from his own projection of what he thought I was seeing.
Now look at him doing everything you described earlier. He is controlling you. Is it true?
No, because it's not really for no reason or
That is,
unvalid.
yeah, that is some serious caretaking you just hit on. Taking responsibility. This is a lot for you. That you've got a lot of that in your life going. I'm willing to,
I'm willing
that he, I'm willing that he,
I'm willing to let him be controlling in the middle of his own health crisis.
and I look forward to.
And I look forward to him being controlling in the middle of his health crisis.
When controlling means your best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a very short exchange of Q&A when you're together. Like when he gestures like that, like, Dad, what's going on? And without trying to change him, that's his way. But the more self-awareness and self-inquiry that you do. Oh boy, I was in, I think it was Holland, and there was this woman screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming from the street and sitting down, and all the pedestrians would walk way away from her. It was a very busy street, pedestrian street, and she frightened a lot of people. It was kind of like the gestures I was imagining when you were talking about your dad. He was speaking out of the physical, like, don't. And in his mind's eye, there was something very fearful down there he was sparing you from. It wasn't there. You were looking, but in his mind's eye, it was really serious. He didn't want you to have to see that. He want you to see what he saw, or worse.
Mm-hmm.
With this woman, I just, people saw her as angry and dangerous. And so I just sat against the wall with her. And she didn't even acknowledge I was there, really. We were just two women sitting there watching the pedestrians, and she didn't slow down or stop for a moment. And I listened. That's the point of why I'm sharing the story with you. I listened. There were so many things she was saying that were valid,
Mm-hmm.
to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had this work in me, I could relate to every word she said, every sentence she said, and the rises and falls of her voice and her expression. Nothing unfamiliar to me as I just sat there with my friend. No words necessary from me.
Beautiful.
If I'm not wrong, at one point she offered me something. I don't recall what it is, so I can't say that that actually happened. But she certainly wasn't threatened by me. And and that's because I was truly interested. I was fascinated.
Mm-hmm. 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 Whereas everybody else walking by just shunned her and just afraid or whatever.
She was a force, and she was huge
Mm-hmm.
and comfortable, her legs spread apart and just on the ground, all of her stuff around her. Strong. So I listened, and I related, which is what I see you doing today as our teacher. Listening, becoming self-aware, father aware, and a lot of daughter awareing, a lot of daughter awareness growing up. Yeah. And you know what I love about, for example, father work in this case? You can just do worksheets on your dad, just worksheets on your dad. And you say, oh, I see him as really just into fathering the best way he knew how, and it's done. No, you want, oh my God, to do father work is to love father. Those of you, it doesn't matter out there whose fathers aren't living, they're living in you. Those of you that have fathers that are living, they're living in you. And it's just not, oh my gosh. I'm coming from experience, so I'm just kind of intoxicated with who people are when we question our thoughts about them. And it's not just an education, it's knowledge, it's self-awareness. It takes a lot of courage, honey. You're amazing. So I look forward to.
I look forward to him being controlling of me in the middle of a health crisis. I look forward to seeing his angry face.
Hmm. Now, was that anger or worry? Anger or fear? Hard to tell the difference often.
Mhm.
Honey, thank you again for being our teacher today and for your courage. And oh my goodness, your father, that guy, boy, he learned to deal with you. And you're catching up to him, I think, learning to deal with him. Dejan, honey, you have a takeaway. What a worksheet, huh? I love these worksheets.
Hi,
Hi.
nice to see you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Um,
Nice to see you, and thank you for raising your hand. All of you, these takeaways are so important. They plug us into even more often.
hmm, um, I've been familiar with your work for a while, and I find myself walking away from it, wanting to do it in my head, and
It's like I just thought I'd hand the work over to my ego,
correct,
take
and
over eventually.
yeah, it's and then the reality smacks me in the face where it's like, oh, no, no, no. You need to sit down and put it on paper because you haven't figured it out. And I think that there's this striving for me to want to figure it out. And I really relate so much to Sangeeta's experience that she just took us through because my father actually just visited me uh, 4 or 5 days ago. He left, he was here for 5 days, and Uh, it's the first time in probably 36 years that I've spent consecutive days with just me and him.
Um,
Uh, but it brought a lot of anxiousness, discomfort that I was really having a hard time being present. Intellectually, of course, I'm realizing what a gift it is that I do still have a dad that very much like Sangeeta is so caring, so loving, and I take it as I'm resisting and pushing away his worry for me. Um, and I think it is hurtful to him, but my ego is making me almost like too proud to say, I got this, Dad. Stop worrying. You've been worrying all your life about me. I'm gonna be okay. Um, yeah.
Worry. you know, you are okay. If you're going to tell him, Dad, I'm okay, that tells me you're okay if you're telling him the truth.
Mhm.
And it leads you to just understand why your father would not see you as okay. And we experience several places where that went on with Sangeeta's work. And yeah, these worksheets will show you your part. You know, why might my dad worry about me? Huh, let me count the ways. He's been dead for years, but oh, let me count the ways. And you know, for some of us, no matter how old our children are, you know, we knew what it was like for them to grow up sometimes in those hard places. And, you know, for some of us, our modus operandi as parents are on to say things like, you know, I know how hard your whatever it was that allowed you to believe that he doesn't think you're okay. And it could be he absolutely does, but it doesn't stop him from fathering. But as parents, who are we if we're not concerned about you at any age? And wow, I just said that and thinking of my three children, and I'm not concerned about them, but I have a lot of work in me, and I know their words, I know their lives. I witness, we're close, and they're all three, um, uh, to my mind, a bright mind. In other words, they have good lives. They all three contribute and to the human race, do good in the world.
Mm.
So if there is rise for concern, I'm the first one there, you know, if I'm aware of it.
Yeah. All of these qualities are so much in my father. And, you know, I'm just realizing how much I'm putting my energy and focus on almost making his responsibility, putting even more responsibility on his plate in order for me to be okay,
My,
and not to worry.
that's quite some insight.
And I'm trying not to. I catch myself. I'm aware of this because of the amount of work I've done on myself and all, but I get frustrated that it still comes up. Like, why am I defaulting to this? I know better. Um,
What's an example of defaulting to this?
um, to uh, in my mind, um, worrying about his older age and the struggle that he's going through with my stepmom, for example, and that they're in a lot of confusion. There's been a death in the family, and my stepmom's daughter in particular, and she's going through a grieving process, and it's flipped their world upside down that they're having trouble between the two of them. And I'm going into pity for my dad that at his age he's having to go through this. And so I'm actually putting that work over on my side in my mind and on my shoulders as if he's not equipped to handle it. And yet he's handled
Yeah.
so much difficulty in his life.
Yeah, and you may look at that and find it very disrespectful of your father, whether he is going through that or not. You know him. You know how he gets through things all your life. And you might just, you know, just make your usual calls and say, "Hi, Dad. You okay? What's going on? Listen and no advice, no nothing. Just listen and go, wow, oh my goodness. Oh, I hear that. You know, those words that that express where we're at.
I've even said to him, Dad, I'm gonna be your therapist, okay?
Oh, oh. Well, he probably appreciated the words. Who could ask him? Just say you call him and say, Dad, I changed my mind. You be my therapist. I worry about you. Please be my therapist.
Like, oh my gosh, what am I thinking?
Oh, the greatest therapist in the world we watched today. It is what meets self-inquiry when we move in, or the thoughts about the situation, thoughts about your dad to paper, and did in the way we watched from Sangeeta today. Oh, honey, yeah, boy, thoughts on paper. There's something that happens when we move it from our head to paper. And, you know, there it is, black and white. It's a thing. It's a thing. When it's in our head, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's ego imagining up identity. But we move it from head to paper. There, that's a thing. We can question it. And the ego just wants to be met with understanding. And this work gives us that. How respectful to respect the ego to the point where we listen to it and honor it by moving it from our head to paper and then question it. And then the ego, that wild child, begins to trust we're not trying to kill it. And then eventually it finds a home in the heart. And that's non-duality. That is no separation. Mind, and I'll use the word heart, mind at home in itself. Oh my goodness. That's it. That's it. And then, oops, mind wasn't at home in my heart. Okay, that's another worksheet. It's another worksheet.
And I see the amazing thing about this. I see the pattern where that it's like a sprinkler that like just goes and in different situations applies the same method, even in my business, where if there's time for me to process, then I will look to put so much focus on what my customer, what is my partner, what is so and so, and so draining that I'm like, wait. Why am I so dependent on what action they're gonna take? I need to, yeah. And so it's a similar mechanism.
It is. It's like, what action am I going to take to resolve what needs to resolve? And worksheets sure show us those living turnarounds after we've questioned what we've written, those living turnarounds to live them. Oh my, they're so, what I love about them, and it's not advice that's coming from out from the world, it's our internal best. It's like we're putting it through a cleansing, and then what comes out is everyone benefits. Everyone in our life benefits. Thank
Yes.
you, sweetie. Oh, Nimit. Hi,
Hello.
Nimit.
Hi. So I have a question about I've really started doing in-depth father work as well. I have a controlling slash protective, overbearing Indian father as well. But I think one of the challenges I found, so I've been living with my parents for the last 3 years, just a career financial situation, and I've done a lot of mother work, like so much mother work, and I can get to a really clear reference point with my mother. But when it comes to my father, I cannot do the work when I'm in his presence. Like something sort of mixes with my head, and I'm like, the thoughts don't even come up. And when I go away, I'm able to, but it's I just wondered if you could comment.
No, that works. You know, it's like when you're with him, Not so much. And when you're away, that's perfect. You're away, you can find space, time and space to do your father work.
Okay. And then if we struggle to get to like that reference point of stillness, and we're doing a worksheet, would you recommend just sitting with the thought until we kind of hit that clarity, or just sort of go
Yes, yeah, because the work is very clear. Like, there's something wrong with my father, and then I'm anchored in this situation, and I see him in a chair. He's not speaking to my mother. He's very sullen. My gosh, he looks to be in his late 50s, which I thought was really old, but it's not. I've got a son in his 60s. I see him sit in that chair. He won't speak to my mother. My mother's very upset. Okay, that situation, I'm going to judge my father. I'm anchored. In that situation, I'm going to judge my father, having witnessed my mother pass by and his coldness, like nothing could penetrate him. He's cold. Worksheet on my father. My father is cold toward my mother. Is it true? That would be my number one. Okay, and then what do I want? Now I have to go back to like 12 years old and that old house we used to live in. I have to be there now. What did I want in that situation? I want my father to speak to my mother. And then my head could go, but there must be more, there must be more. That's it. I want my father to speak to okay. I want my father to speak kindly to my mother. Okay, now I've got number two. Okay. So I fill in the worksheet that way, just watching him in that chair, immovable, bitter, and watch my mother just tiptoe through to fix lunch. Anchored in the situation, judging my father. He could go on like that for days. And I might miss it, but my mother was the first one to let us know. So,
yeah.
but you know, that'll show up, and that doesn't stop me from keeping that one-liner, filling in that worksheet on what I was thinking and believing in that situation, not with my mother's influence later, but that situation. Yeah, because that's where the so much of our personality is molded out of that. You know, I don't ever want to be like him. So you see how I'm being molded? You know, I'm going to be forthcoming. I'm not ever going to be cold to my children or my spouse, you know, or people in my life. Not going to be like him. Just one little thing that popped up in my head from the past that I hadn't seen before until I was talking to you. Good. Worksheet. Even though they're both dead, they're living here. Where am I cold to Stephen or my children? Where am I immovable? What I'm thinking and believing. Yeah.
If it takes us like, you know, I spent 2 hours on who would I be without the thought. It took a long time to just, even though I had a clear anchor, my dad said these words like, girls always come home, and I'm like, he's discouraging, he doesn't respect my autonomy. And 2 hours to be like, who am I without the thought? So that's normal. We should get to that.
Sure, it's an exercise in stillness. Yeah. Yeah. Who am I without the thought? What was it?
He doesn't respect my autonomy.
Doesn't, and it's sometimes helpful. Who would I be without the thought? Sometimes it's helpful to understand that you're not thinking that thought all the time, and it'll show you who you are without the thought. But anchored in the situation, you have a little bumper experience of how to just sit in that situation without the thought. He doesn't respect my autonomy. Oh, and it could be, it's true. Until you turn it around and go, I don't respect his autonomy. It's like, oops, oops.
There. Say whatever comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, honey, thank you. Oh, Nasima. Hi, Nasima, your takeaways, honey.
I related a lot about this work because I also been a rebel and also been very fearful. And I was feeling a lot of love for my father and myself because I see that we've been trying all our lives so hard. Both of us trying and trying and trying and trying. And we thought we got it sometimes, other times didn't. And now he's also in bed. He's been in hospital. And somehow it's kind of happening now that we can do it. And we don't say anything. We just are there. And it's funny because when I come back home, the past comes and I'm still very afraid. And now it's both at the same time.
Yeah.
That in reality it's happening and on the phone it's happening. And then by myself, it's again like,
Yeah.
you know?
The ego offers up unfinished worksheets.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you've been describing doesn't need a worksheet. But then what you brought in, and other times when you leave the hospital, you come home. Yeah, the ego offers up next worksheet, next worksheet. Says, please bring me to your heart. What are you thinking? Move it from your head to paper. Question it. Take me home. The ego's a terrified little child. It's just looking for a home, a home, a home where it can merge. And that is, it's safe in truth. It's safe in truth. That's something it can trust, but it is at war against it.
And I've been doing
Against it. It's lost. It's a lost child.
I've been doing a few worksheets on him and on my mother and my partner. Like in all of them, it seems to go to the same core, like where it started. And I can remember, I didn't remember, but I can remember now, like being 10 years old and completely sure and feeling that if my mother goes, I go. If they die, I die, completely and almost like a mystic experience, like, and I see how the rest of my life that was kind of there. And I've been trying to prove that I can live without them, That's why I was so rebellious.
Yeah.
And so it goes from one to the other. Like sometimes the ego is playing, I can live without you, so I'm not with them, I'm not open. And then when things get like this, then I get the other position, like, oh, I cannot live with them. And then I try to catch them. So it's this thing that when you start meditating or you start like seeing yourself, it's like, of course, the ego wants to survive. It's not really you. So I still haven't figured it out. It's not like, but through the worksheets, I got to that point, no, of that.
The ego is one word, ego, and it stands for state of mind, and state of moods, mood swings and fears and doubts and joy and pain and all of it. And I love that you have self-inquiry, honey, and you know your way home, you know your way to love, you know your way back, to that place you never left. The ego just fills up all the space, and we don't notice that we are as pure. We are as pure of mind as we came in with. As pure of body and mind as if I'm physically ill and I'm dying, the body, that's not I. That body is what I am thinking and believing it to be, and that's ego's work. And we can always move that ego, those thoughts, from our head to paper and discover an egoless world without a past, without a future, a place some people call heaven. For me, I call, this the gift of life. It's everyone and everything. If I'm not connected with it, it's a worksheet. Yeah. Honey, thank you for your words and your work.
Thanks to you, Byron Katie. I feel you are a blessing to this world, and I'm so grateful that you exist. And
thank you. Thank you so much for saying that.
thank you.
Okay, dears. Well, thanks to your contribution, staff and I will be back here every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and I look forward to that, as I know the staff does. And thank you all for something beautiful.